This is going to be our home now. The rest of the stuff is arriving today, so please take care of them. What? Why are you deciding this on your own? Oh, by the way, Anna will be coming too. Please welcome her. I had noticed that they had started coming over more often since we moved into the high-rise condo, but I never expected such bold actions. I immediately asked my husband, who had just returned from work. Your mother and her family are saying they're going to live here? Oh, yeah, that was today, wasn't it? What are you talking about? Huh? Didn't I mention it? They're moving in with us today. Haha. I was dumbfounded by my husband's laughter. I couldn't think of what to say next. Don't just stand there. Get ready to make dinner. We're celebrating today. At those words, my anger reached its peak. How can this be allowed? After all, we can live here thanks to me. Huh? What are you talking about? That's not true. As we were arguing, my mother-in-law arrived. If you hate living together so much, why don't you just leave? Then she threw an envelope on the table. What is this? It's severance money from us. Severance money? There's $10,000 in the envelope. Take it, get divorced, and leave. We'll take the house. The in-laws were snickering at me. At that moment, I made up my mind. They are such fools. Lucky me. Understood. I'll leave right away. I quickly packed my bags and left the house, jumping for joy. But this wasn't the end. I couldn't stop laughing, thinking about what would happen to my in-laws next. My name is Sarah, and I work as a bank employee. I thought I would have a happy life married to Kevin. But marriage doesn't always go as planned. I realized this when I first met my mother-in-law. So you are Sarah. What do you do for a living? I'm a bank employee. Oh, a bank employee, huh? I guess you don't have to be too smart to do that. What? It was clear she was belittling me. This happened during our introductory meeting before the marriage. Kevin, sitting next to me, seemed not to hear and just smoked his cigarette. Well, let's get along from now on. Yes. Nice to meet you. I wondered if everything was going to be okay. But after we got married, my husband was kind and we didn't have to interact much with my mother-in-law. Are you sure it was a good idea to marry a man with such a modest salary? What's wrong all of a sudden? Well, my mom used to say such things, but now I just feel pathetic. It's okay. Don't worry. Kevin had always been insecure, even when we were dating. He was even intimidated when he found out I was a bank employee, but I never cared much about my partner's financial status. Since then, I think we've had a fun, albeit modest, life. What are you planning to do about where we live? A few months after getting married, I received a phone call from my father. I think we're fine as we are now. We don't have any particular needs. Actually, a spot has opened up in the high-rise condo, so I was wondering what you think. Huh? A high-rise condo. Indeed, my father owned a high-rise condo. Originally a company president, he had handed over the business to my brother and was now living a relaxed life. Of course, my husband was aware of this. If you guys are interested, you can move in immediately. Got it. I'll discuss it with Kevin. I consulted with my husband. Kevin, are you interested in living in a high-rise condo? A high-rise condo? It would be amazing to live in such a place. Kevin showed an excitement I hadn't seen before. Seeing his smile made me happy too. Actually, my dad offered us to live in the high-rise condo. Really? Yes. Kevin, possibly overwhelmed with excitement, suddenly grabbed my shoulders. Calm down a bit. Sorry. And so, it was decided that we would live in the high-rise condo. However, for me, it was the beginning of a nightmare. I'll contact Dad then. Okay, thanks. But I can't believe I'm going to live in a high-rise condo. Kevin's eyes sparkled. After getting Kevin's approval, I called my dad the next day. Hello, Dad. Kevin agreed, so we've decided to move in. That's great. It's already cleaned and ready for you anytime. Got it. Thank you. Don't worry, I'll take care of the paperwork. At this moment, I realized something important and asked my father, by the way, how will we handle the rent? Don't worry about that. As long as you live there, you won't need to pay rent. Really? Of course. It's all for my dear daughter. My husband and I started preparing to move immediately. We moved in just 1 week. Perhaps both of us were excited to live in the high-rise condo. So this is a high-rise condo. It's incredible. I never imagined we could live in such a place. It's like a dream. All thanks to your father. Indeed, we need to express our gratitude. Although initially bewildered by the larger space of the high-rise condo, it only took a week for us to get used to it. I had concerns about whether someone like me should live there, but those concerns faded away. About 2 months after we started living in the high-rise condo, my sister Anna wants to come visit. Is that okay? Kevin had an older sister named Anna. I heard from Kevin that she had been married but got divorced because she was fed up with her husband and had returned to her parents' home. That's fine, but why does she want to come here? I hardly had any conversation with her before, so I didn't understand the reason. Well, I mentioned our new place, and she said she wanted to come over. That's fine, as long as it's on the weekend. I'll let her know then. And then the promised Saturday arrived. When the doorbell rang and I opened the front door, there stood a woman clad in branded items from head to toe. I couldn't help but step back, and then she spoke. It's been a while. Do you remember me? Of course, Anna. Then may I come in? Oh, excuse me. Please come in. My sister-in-law entered the house and seemed to be inspecting every corner. She checked each room, nodding as if satisfied with something. Is there something that concerns you? I was just admiring the house. Ordinary people can't live in such a place, right? It's all thanks to my father. Then we moved to the living room and had a casual chat. During our pleasant conversation, my sister-in-law suddenly made a condescending remark. At that time, I didn't understand why that was happening. It must be nice to be you, Sarah. Don't you think so, Kevin? I don't really. But this house is all thanks to your father-in-law, right? I wondered why she said that and timidly asked for a reason. Did I do something wrong? Not at all. It's just that our family wasn't wealthy. I knew from Kevin that his father had passed away when they were in middle school. Since then, they have faced many hardships. That made me think she might be jealous of me. That could be why she was dressed in all those branded items. Well, I'll be going now. I'll visit again soon. Take care. Okay. For about 2 hours, the conversation mostly revolved around their hardships and how fortunate I was. During that time, Kevin hardly joined in the conversation and just silently listened to his sister. I'm sorry. My sister is like that. I kind of figured. I'll make sure to warn her next time. Kevin promised, but less than a month later, she visited us again. And this time, she wasn't alone. Sorry for intruding. She barged in and plopped down on the sofa. Today, I brought our mom along, but the door was locked. Oh, Kevin gave me a spare key. What? I wanted to ask Kevin about it immediately, but he was out and unavailable. I had a bad feeling this could lead to trouble. And then the most troublesome person spoke up. It's not that big of a deal. What's the problem with having a spare key? The issue is that I wasn't informed about it. Maybe Kevin doesn't trust you? I think so too. With the two of them against me, it seemed hopeless. From that day on, my life turned completely different from before. When I returned home from work, I found my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law in the house. Moreover, they had helped themselves to the food in the fridge and moved things around the rooms without asking. This isn't right, don't you think? Even if I say something, the two of them won't listen. So, maybe it's best to just let them do what they want. I can't stand living like this. Please talk to them. I was quite frustrated. Frustrated with my husband for doing nothing and with myself for being powerless. Okay, I'll talk to them. Will you be there with me? If you're going to speak up properly, then I don't mind. My husband, as usual, confronted the two when they came over. However, they didn't pay any attention. Sarah must have instigated this, right? Come on, Kevin, be more assertive. That's right. You're the head of the household. You should have your own opinions. Then my husband seemed to be contemplating something, looking down. Don't say weird things. Please leave. When I said this to the two, my husband unexpectedly turned against me. You're the one who should be quiet. What? My husband was siding against me. He had completely succumbed to the will of his mother and sister. They took advantage of Kevin's lack of confidence and his inability to refuse. Now, I had no one on my side. I was wrong in my judgment. What my sister and mother said is correct. From now on, I will also express my own opinions. When my husband spoke with newfound confidence, the two smirked and looked at us. From then on, the situation became one-sided. I've decided to allow my mom and sister to come and go as they please. Wait, don't make such decisions without me. The decision is made and you have no say in it. My husband ignored my opinion, and his mother and sister supported his decision. Sarah, that's enough. That's right. Kevin is the head of this household. You just need to follow him as his wife. And there's a spare room, right? No way. It's a waste to have an unused room, so we'll use it. The atmosphere was clearly in their favor. The room lent by my father was now considered theirs. Given the circumstances, I had no choice but to tough it out. I decided to focus on my work and not worry about the situation at home. 6 months later, this attitude paid off. You've been doing really well lately. How about working in a higher position? Me, I've been watching your work recently, and I think you're the right person for the job. Thank you. I'll continue to do my best. It was an unexpected motivation, but it was the happiest thing that had happened to me so far. However, there was a problem. You've been coming home late recently. What have you been up to? Just work. Really? Aren't you having an affair? If you think it's a lie, go ahead and check. This is where my mother-in-law and sister-in-law would chime in. Getting so defensive makes you look even more suspicious. Anna might be right, but Mom, no one would pay attention to Sarah with her looks. Indeed, they clapped their hands and laughed together. They were just having fun teasing me. Until then, they would come over maybe 3 times a week at most, but recently, they started to be at our house almost every day. One day, my mother-in-law came to me and said something totally off base. Do you need something? Do you even understand? Understand what? Have you ever thought about why you can live in a place like this? A woman like you doesn't fit in here. I thought to myself, that's more like her. You can't even do household chores properly. You're useless here. Do you get that? I was continuously bombarded with such baseless accusations. Of course, I wanted to retort immediately, but I felt that nothing I said would improve the situation. I chose to stay silent. Afterwards, perhaps bored, my mother-in-law returned to her room. Just as I was about to start preparing dinner, my sister-in-law came. I heard the conversation earlier. There's never a moment of peace. You should really understand your place. You're like a maid in this house. I work hard too, you know? And it might sound bad, but I earn more than Kevin. Then you should contribute that money to the household expenses. For us, of course. I couldn't agree with her argument. I wasn't living in luxury. I was actually paying for most of our daily expenses, like utilities and groceries. Kevin seemed to have forgotten that, and more importantly, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law didn't even know the reality. I often wondered what would happen if I stopped paying. Then why don't you work, Anna? Why should I have to do that? I almost envied her ability to say such things earnestly. It was a mystery where she went every day without working. So, where do you go every day? I don't need to tell you that. At that moment, my sister-in-law avoided looking at me. It was clear she was involved in something she couldn't openly talk about. Is that so? Then I'll just assume you're gallivanting around every day without working. I said this with a serious face. Angered, my sister-in-law threw a mug from the table at me. It didn't hit me, but the mug shattered into pieces. Why did you dodge? That was my favorite cup. Since it's your fault, clean it up. I silently began cleaning up a broken cup while she stood by, watching and laughing. I thought about throwing the shards back at her, but I refrained. You're in the way standing there. What? I'm just watching. After cleaning up in a few minutes, I tried to leave, but my sister-in-law interjected again. Remember, if you say something weird next time, it'll be much worse. I understand. I'll be careful. Inside, I didn't mean it. Watching my sister-in-law's satisfied departure, I complained in my mind, "Don't get too cocky. You'll get what's coming to you soon." Then one day, as usual, when I returned home from shopping, the house was noisy. Entering the house, I was met with a multitude of cardboard boxes everywhere. My mother-in-law was bustling around. "What are you doing? This is going to be our home now. The rest of the stuff is arriving today, so please take care of them." "What? Why are you deciding this on your own? Oh, by the way, Anna will be coming too. Please welcome her." I immediately asked my husband, who had just returned from work. "Your mother and her family are saying they're going to live here?" "Oh, yeah, that was today, wasn't it? What are you talking about?" "Huh? Didn't I mention it? They're moving in with us today." I was dumbfounded by my husband's laughter. I couldn't think of what to say next. "Don't just stand there. Get ready to make dinner. We're celebrating today." At those words, my anger reached its peak. How can this be allowed? After all, we can live here thanks to me. Huh? What are you talking about? That's not true. Are you serious? Serious? But you're just obeying everything your family says. What did you say? Say that again. My husband raised his hand towards me. At that moment, it wasn't fear I felt, but disbelief at how my husband, who used to be so unassertive, could change to this extent. "Going to hit me? Try if you dare." Then, my husband slowly lowered his arm. Apparently, my words intimidated him, and he calmed down a bit. But then, he started laughing, recalling something. "What are you laughing at? I just remembered why we got married. You should be thankful that you could marry me." "What are you talking about? You might not know, but I married you because nobody else was interested. Before, I thought we got married out of love. Now, being told this, there's nothing I can do." My husband continued with a shocking revelation. "And it's annoying, but I married you because you earn more than me." "Oh, but that's what Mom told me." I felt nothing but anger towards my laughing husband. "So that was the reason. Since you're married to someone like me, it's only natural for you to contribute to the living expenses. Indeed, ever since we got married, I was the one who always provided the money whenever needed. I never thought you were such a terrible person. That's mutual. You only bring home money, and I never thought you could be so boring." As my husband and I were arguing, my mother-in-law arrived. "If you hate living together so much, why don't you just leave? Why should I have to do that? We don't need someone like you in this place." My sister-in-law agreed. "Sarah is unnecessary. Nothing will change if you're gone." Then, my mother-in-law threw an envelope on the table. "What is this?" "It's severance money from us." "Severance money? There's $10,000 in the envelope. Take it, get divorced, and leave. We'll take the house." Haha. My in-laws were smirking at me. At that moment, I made up my mind. The high-rise condo I was living in was technically in my name, but I was only borrowing it for free from my father. And then I thought of a way to retaliate against them. Such foolish people. This is an opportunity for me. I decided to act immediately. "Understood. I'll leave right away. I thought you would put up more of a fight." Well, that's the kind of woman she was. "Too bad, but I don't want to see your face anymore, so leave quickly." I was planning to do so without you telling me. I quickly packed my bags and left the house, almost dancing with glee. Imagining what would happen to my in-laws next made me unable to stop laughing. I decided to go back to my parents' house to inform my father about the situation. "Why have you come back suddenly?" "I've been kicked out of the house." "Kicked out? How did that happen?" "Well, you see." I explained to my father what had happened that day and the events leading up to it. I could see my father's face turning to anger as I spoke. After I finished, he was angrier than I had ever seen him. "Let's kick them out immediately." But I stopped him. "Wait, Dad, I have a better idea." "What kind of idea?" I shared the plan I had thought of when leaving the house. My father nodded and accepted my suggestion. "That's a brilliant idea, right? This way, it benefits you as well, and I get my revenge. So, you'll take care of it?" "Yes, don't worry." The next day, I contacted my husband immediately. "About the apartment. I have no intention of giving it back. I know. but the ownership is still mine, so I'm thinking of transferring it to you. Then it will truly be yours, right? I see. I don't want to cause you any trouble. I'll handle the paperwork. Is that okay? Okay. I'll leave it to you. All right. I'll also send the divorce papers by mail. Take care. After saying that, I hung up the phone. Just before hanging up, I could sense my husband's joy. A week later, the divorce was finalized, and the paperwork for the high-rise condo was completed. All that was left was to wait. Hey, I got a bill for $6,000. What's the meaning of this? Explain. A month later, my furious husband called. It was hard to suppress my laughter at his reaction. Well, it's a high-rise condo, you know? Did you think you could live there for free? But the rent was free until now, wasn't it? Indeed, when I was there, haha. This is no joke. He was shouting so loudly that I had to pull the phone away from my ear. It was free because I was there, but now that it's yours, you need to pay the rent. We're not going to pay that. You can choose not to, but remember, the owner of the apartment is my father. After a moment of silence, my mother-in-law took the phone. I heard from Kevin what you did. That was unnecessary of you. Unnecessary? I believe what I did was entirely justified. Please don't be mistaken. What an impudent woman you are. It doesn't matter to me. Haha. You shouldn't have given me $10,000 then. I provoked my mother-in-law. I thought I wouldn't have to deal with them anymore. Indeed, my words got to her. We will absolutely not pay. Is that so? That's fine by me. But don't say I didn't warn you if my father decides to sue. My mother-in-law seemed shaken, losing her previous confidence. Aren't you ashamed to rely on your father? Not at all. It's more shameful for someone who tried to manipulate their son to their own ends, don't you think? I can have a reasonable conversation with you, so let's send this. She must have realized she was at a disadvantage because she abruptly hung up the phone. She was just running away. I immediately informed my father about the conversation. I see. Then I need to do something about it for my daughter. I'm counting on you. My former in-laws acted impulsively, thinking only of their convenience, and this was the result. Such a pitiful parent and child. They will face more difficulties from now on. I will just wait and enjoy watching. Time passed, and my ex-husband and his family continued living in the high-rise condo without paying rent. Eventually, my father had to take action. I just billed them for the past due rent. Really? We can't ignore this any longer. It will be a good lesson for them. Then, a new revelation came to light. There were traces of unauthorized purchases made with a credit card in my name. A lawyer, introduced by my father, was hired, and preparations for a lawsuit began, demanding reimbursement from my ex-husband and his family. Why should we pay you? The first to object was my sister-in-law, mostly because the purchases were expensive branded bags and clothes. How can you say that after shopping with someone else's money? This is clear theft. It's pathetic to fuss over such trivial matters. Besides, those purchases were made before your divorce, so I think they're invalid. Unfortunately, that logic doesn't apply. You and I are strangers now. I don't care about that. The call was from my sister-in-law, but she hung up unilaterally. Escaping seems to be their usual tactic. However, they couldn't escape and had to make the payment. They must pay the rent for the apartment, but that family doesn't have the means to pay. There was one person who came begging for forgiveness. What are you saying now? We can't afford to pay such an amount. We'd be ruined even if we took out loans. You understand, right? My mother-in-law was trying to get sympathy through tears. It's all your responsibility. Aren't you ashamed at this point? I know that. I'm asking you, having known about it fully well. I felt it was a waste of time to be involved with these people. It's impossible. Please make sure to pay the full amount. Please help me. Afterward, it seems they continued to live in poverty. The three of them, having lost their place to live, returned to their old family home, which was in a dilapidated state to neglect. Eventually, they realized they needed more money to live and decided to sell it for a cheap price. I heard, "Sarah, please help me. I received a call from my ex-husband, Kevin, but I ignored it and hung up. In the end, I was able to live in the high-rise condo they had left. Of course, I don't have to pay any rent. My work is going well, and from now on, I will live my life putting my happiness first.